All our thoughts, willings, feelings, sense representations have in them or at their roots an element of truth which originates and sustains their existence. However, in the actuality, they may be perverted or false, and behind them a greater ungrasped truth, which, if they could grasp it, would make them soon unified, harmonious, and at least relatively complete. Actually, however, such truth as they have is diminished in scope, degraded into a lower movement, divided and falsified by fragmentation, afflicted with incompleteness, marred by perversion. Mental knowledge is not an integral but always a partial knowledge. It adds constantly detail to detail but has a difficulty in relating them aright. Its wholes are not real but incomplete wholes, which it tends to substitute for the more real and integral knowledge. And even if it arrived at a kind of integral knowledge, it would still be by a sort of putting together a mental and intellectual arrangement, an artificial unity, and not an essential and real oneness. If that were all, the mind might conceivably arrive at some kind of half reflection, half translation of an integral knowledge, but the radical malady would still be that it would not be the real thing, but only at best an intellectual representation. That the mental truth must always be an intellectual, emotional, and sensational representation, not the direct truth, not truth itself in its body and essence. The supermind can do all that the mind does, present and combine details and what might be called aspects or subordinate wholes, but it does it in a different way and on another basis. It does not, like the mind, bring in the element of deviation, false extension, and imposed error, but even when it gives a partial knowledge, gives it in a firm and exact light, and always there is behind, implied or opened to the consciousness, the essential truth on which the details and subordinate wholes or aspects depend. The supermind has also a power of representation, but its representations are not of the intellectual kind. They are filled with the body and substance of light of the truth in its essence. They are its vehicles and not substituted figures. There is such an infinite power of representation of the supermind, and that is the divine power of which the mental action is a sort of fallen representative. This representative supermind has a lower action in what I have called the supramental reason, nearest to the mental and into which the mental can most easily be taken up, and a higher action in the integral supermind that sees all things in the unity and infinity of the divine consciousness and self-existence. But on whatever level, it is a different thing from the corresponding mental action, direct, luminous, secure. The whole inferiority of the mind comes from its being the action of the soul after it has fallen into the nescience and the ignorance and is trying to get back to self-knowledge, but doing it still on the basis of the nescience and the ignorance. The mind is the ignorance attempting to know, or it is the ignorance receiving a derivative knowledge. It is the action of avidya. The supermind is always the disclosure of an inherent and self-existent knowledge. It is the action of vidya.